So today we're going to talk about evaluating algebraic expressions. And we're going to take a second here just to review. And on the board here, I've written two different things. One is an equation, one is expression. Remember, the equation has an equal sign. So today we're not talking about equations. We're talking about algebraic expressions. Again, this is a two-term expression. It's algebraic because it has x and y. The x is one term, the 2y is the other term. And it has the second term has a coefficient of 2. I could also make the argument that the coefficient on the first term is a 1. Now again, if I'm going to evaluate that to a single value, I need to know what x and y are. So I'm going to also need some equations to do evaluations. So if I start with x plus 2y is my algebraic expression, and I give the equation x is equal to -2 and y is equal to -3. Now, you might be able to do this one in your head, but one of my big rules for doing evaluation is realizing we are changing x for the value of -2. And we're changing y, and you notice I substitute parentheses for the variable first for -3. And I do the parentheses to remind ourselves that it's 2 times y. Often I see students evaluate this way. They don't put parentheses in, and if you write this to me, this means -2 plus 2 minus 3. But it should be 2 times -3. So I always put the parentheses in. Now we follow our order of operations. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. I have some multiplication here. So I multiply there. Here it's -2. So now I have -2 to the left, -6 to the left, and I have a value of -8. I have evaluated that algebraic expression for those values, and I get it to be -8. There were 2 terms here. So now we look at the next problem. X squared MP. How many terms? 1 term. So we do our evaluation. And I start by replacing the variable with parentheses. And you notice the square stays on parentheses. So I put in my x, my m, and my p. And I can have the same value. Well, 2 squared, that means 2 times 2. And if I want, I can write that out. Or, a lot of times students skip that step and just write the value, 4. Now I can do the math. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 times 2 is 40. And again, I have evaluated my algebraic expression. Let's do a couple examples. And again, I think it's very important that we realize that we're replacing the variable with parentheses. And we should start when we look at an expression thinking how many terms there are. -a minus b minus ab. 1 term, 2 term, 3 terms. Before I do any addition or subtraction, I need to get to 3 distinct values if I'm going to evaluate this. And I got if a is -3 and b is -4. So I start by replacing the variables with parentheses. And then I substitute the value. Now usually I don't do 2 separate steps, but I think right now it shows it better. So I replace a with -3, b with -4, a with -3, b with -4. And then I don't see subtraction. I insert addition signs between the terms. And then I look for parentheses. I have them, but there is all values inside. Exponents, I don't have any. Then multiplication. How many multiplications are there here? A lot of students will say 1. I personally see 3. Negative times a negative, positive, plus. Negative times a negative, positive, plus. Negative, negative, negative. 3 negatives, it's an odd number, make a negative. 3 times 4, -12. 3 plus 4, I know it's 7, plus -12. 7 to the right, -12 to the left. My answer or value for this expression is -5. Last one. And again, before you pause me and try this, how many terms are there in this algebraic expression? There is 1 term. It's a negative times this value times this value. Now, if you look inside the parentheses, you can say there are 2 terms in the first set of parentheses, and there are two terms in the second parentheses, but the overall expression is one value. It is one thing. So again, I will start, and I always exaggerate the big parentheses and use little parentheses for my variables. Oops, didn't give myself enough space there. That is my first step. And now I will substitute the values. M is 2, and I have it in 2 spots. X is -3, I have that in 2 spots, and A is -4. And this time I have to operate in parentheses first, so I carry my signs. 2 plus -3. 2 to the right, -3 back. I can simplify that to the value -1. Now over here I have a little more work. I have 2 terms that I need some multiplication here first. So I'm going to have to do this as 2 steps. -4, 2 negatives multiplied, make a positive, plus 2 times -3 is -6. Again, I will not do anything here, but here I have 4 plus -6. 4 to the right, -6 back, -2. Now I have singular values inside the parentheses. Negative, negative, negative. I always decide the sign first. 3 negatives is negative. 1 times 2, the value of this is -2. Again, the big thing with algebraic expressions is no equal sign, and it has variables. Again, work the problems, make sure you always check your answer, and remember order of operation.